Look how cute, very sidebar, this is going to be on the video, how cute these
Mm.
tiny little wheat thins are. They're so cute. They bring me joy.
Get home from school, turn on my TV. Who are these friends staring right back at me? Now that we're older, why don't you come over and go back in time with me? 90s babies nostalgia.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Jessica.
And this is 90s Babies Nostalgia, where two fully grown millennial women rewatch and sometimes watch for the first time iconic tween, well, not just iconic, I always get that mixed up, tween entertainment from the early 2000s.
Just to be clear, we are not affiliated with or sponsored by any of the companies, channels, TV shows we mentioned in our podcast. We just really love watching TV and talking about TV. And today we are rewatching That's So Raven Season 2, Part 2.
Okay, and we are having cozy winter vibes today. It's a snowstorm, not to date the episode, but I am in New England and I'm happy to be in my cozy home talking about a show that I love.
Yeah. And it's a good second half of the season. I know we keep talking about like how much we love That's a Raven and how great it is, but I cannot stress enough how good this show is.
Yeah. And I think season 2 really elevates it from what it was. Like season 1 was really funny and had a lot of potential, and then season 2 with the storylines introduced just makes it that much better.
Yeah, and we get a lot more like reoccurring plot lines in season 2, or like continuous plot lines, which I feel like kind of makes it that much more fun to rewatch because you're also seeing the story come together, where like I don't have memories of like all these continuous plot lines from childhood, and I think that's just because I would watch them when they would come out, or I would watch them as reruns and not necessarily like in order, you know?
I do remember, so for season 2, our main reoccurring characters and thus plot lines are the introduction of Raven's main frenemy, Alana, played by Adrienne Bailon, and her main boyfriend, Devon Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god, I just forgot the actor's name. Sorry. But the two of them, I remember them from when I was a kid and those storylines because Adrian was from the Cheetah Girls. The Cheetah Girls came out in 2003. Season 2 of Raven started in, I think, 2003. It was like around the same time. So I was fully into that. And then Devon and Raven, to me, were like soulmates. Like that was the most dramatic romantic thing. I absolutely remember everything, especially the first episode we're going to talk about today. Like
Yes.
that episode stands out in my mind when I think of Raven. That is one of the first things I think of, was that dramatic moment at the end of it.
Yep.
So that episode is episode 9, Blue in the Face.
Mm-hmm.
So Raven is like going back and forth between friends and school and Devon, and she's not paying much attention to school, at least, and she really, really needs to get a good grade on her science project, or else she's going to be grounded and she's going to miss the Blue Rain concert with Devon. At the same time, Victor gets a paper shredder and he starts shredding everything.
This doesn't seem relevant to the plot. It's very relevant to the plot that you know that Victor got a paper shredder.
Yeah, and this is a really fun episode, not just for the reasons I remember it, but because all of the plot lines overlap. Because at the same time, the B plot is that Corey is trying to get in with this popular girl named Madison, but she thinks William's really uncool, and William's a peak uncool in this episode. He's very like nerdy in his dress. And so William needs a makeover. Raven needs an A on her science project. And she's like, William, we can help each other out here. Keep in mind, William's like 10, but he's very, very smart.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide to do a deal. She's going to give him a makeover if he can do her science project. He does his share of the deal, but because Raven's so scatterbrained and focused on Devon and gossip and not anything else, she's so self-absorbed essentially right now, or absorbed in her relationship, she forgets about his makeover. And what does she give him? She I think
She
she
takes
wraps
like a dish rag, like a rainbow dish rag, and puts it on his head like a do-rag.
Yes. And she's like, everyone's doing it these days. And so Corey's like, we need our share of the deal or else. And so he shreds the project, because at this point Williams just typed it up on a piece of paper for Raven to do. So Corey shreds the project in Victor's new paper shredder. So what does Raven do? She doesn't fix, like, she doesn't come up with a new project. No, she stays up all night long because her project's due the next day, going through every shredded piece of paper in this paper shredder bin and taping up the project.
Yes.
It's absurd. And then right after this whole montage of her doing that, she is going to school like very tired, has not slept, and she's like, and her dad, who is shredding everything, he's like, hey, is that trash? And she's like, yeah, and again shreds the project. Which you'd think like the tape would clog up the shredder, but
but it doesn't. Also, you would think the fact that there was a piece of paper that clearly had been shredded and then taped together, Victor would be like, this is weird. Are you sure it's trash? Because clearly someone thought it was trash and shredded it, and you spent all this time taping each piece together. But no.
And then she gets mad at Victor a bit, and I'm like, girl, like immediately she's like, no, my project. And then she kind of like, she's like, you're the reason I'm gonna fail. And it's like, no, he's not the reason. So he stays home to fix the project and put it back together for her, but he's running late and she's trying to stall at school, and she's like making up these weird speeches and poems and things in class, and the teacher's like, are you going to do your project? And so she mixes a couple of things together and creates an explosion in the lab that right as Victor arrives with the project. And so she and Victor both, I think, end up getting covered in this like blue substance that won't wash off for days. Raven's grounded, and Devon shows up underneath her door or her window. When, remember, she has like this attic type room, or at least it's on the second floor and it looks like it's in an attic, and he shows up underneath her window with a boombox blasting, I don't know if it's the concert or just one of their CDs, and it's very romantic, it's very cute, it's true love, it's everything to me, and I'm obsessed with this scene. Side note, Tanya tells Corey that he should be proud of his friends and stick up for William, and so he does. And that wraps up. And so William doesn't end up, he never gets the makeover.
No, he does get the makeover.
He does get the makeover after Corey stood up for him.
Yes.
Whew.
Correct.
That's a hard episode to summarize a bit because there's so many moving parts that overlap, and I kind of feel like we've run into that a lot with Raven because they just keep like intertwining. But that's what part of what makes these episodes so enjoyable.
Yeah, it's something that seemingly starts out to be as a side plot, finds its way into the main plot. So then you're even more invested in everything that's going on because you know it has a chance of being involved somehow.
Yeah. I have to say I was all about a paper shredder as a kid, so I fully get Victor's enthusiasm for it.
I literally wrote down, I feel like this paper shredder plot is actually a thing, especially in the early 2000s. I feel like a lot of people had a household shredder, and it was cool to get a household shredder. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember the first time my parents bought a shredder for our house from Costco, I was in like, I don't know, the third or fourth grade, and it was freaking awesome. And like, they would all the bills and stuff they needed to shred, they would like put a stack and then let me and B shred them because we were like, this is amazing. Like, I feel like a shredder is fun.
Yeah, when my mom was a notary when I was in like fourth or fifth-ish grade, I think. We were in fourth or fifth grade. And so we got a paper shredder then. But we kept it and shredded like tax stuff and bill stuff as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was obsessed. Like
Mhm.
the sound is fun, the sensation is fun, the
Yeah.
little pieces of paper are fun.
Yeah, it's just all around a good time.
um, there are so many Devon episodes, and I maybe this is why I thought they were true love and I was like obsessed with them. But like when I was going through to give you episodes to watch, we watch all of the Devon episodes.
Yep.
We don't miss any. But I almost like some of these I was gonna put as optional because there are so many.
No, but I feel like it's important, especially this one, I feel like is very important because if we remember back to the like Space Force, Star Trek, Star, whatever happened in that episode.
Astro Force 5, was it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Astro Force 5. Um, right, Devon and Raven are working through being honest with each other, and Raven lies about being into one of Devon's interests because she wants him to like her and she wants them to have similar interests. And he's like, you should have just told me the truth. We see true growth in Raven in this episode because at the beginning, Devon's like, I have 2 tickets to the Blue Rain concert. Do you want to go? And she's like, yeah, of course I want to go. And then he makes a comment like, do you know them? And she's like, nope. And I think it's true growth because it shows that like she still wants to do things with him, but she's like not afraid to tell him like, oh nope, never heard of them, don't listen to them, in fear of like not having the same interests. So I liked
Mm-hmm.
that we saw that character growth in her.
Yeah. Uh, Also, for Corey's plot, I didn't know who the actress was at the time. And I haven't seen her anything, but Madison is played by Ryan Brown, who actually does have a good career now. She's in
Mm.
Empire, Our Own Kind of People, Lincoln Heights. She's done a lot of stuff. But as a little kid, she was a great actress. Like,
Yeah,
she brought it.
yeah, she really did. Also, William has a cell phone, and I'm just really confused.
Why?
Like, he just seems a 10-year-old having a cell phone in 2003.
Yeah, but knowing William, he built it himself.
That's true. That's true. I guess I was just like, huh, it seems weird that he would have a cell phone.
Yeah. I didn't notice, but fair enough. I did not have one in 2003. I didn't get one until we went to middle school, sixth grade, 2005 to
Mm.
six. And I had to get a Virgin Mobile one because you get a prepaid card to put in as much money that because you paid by the minute and by the text at
Mhm.
that time. And I had to pay with my allowance money for those minutes and the
Oh,
texts.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have to pay for mine, but I got mine in 7th grade, 2007. But I got it because me and B took the bus home and or walked home. And so
Mm.
my parents were like, probably one of you should have a cell phone so you can just like keep us in the loop or in case anything happens. Sometimes we would walk to my aunt's house who would watch us. So that's why I got a cell phone. But yeah, it was 2007. So I'm like, if I didn't even get a cell phone until I was a teenager and freaking William has a cell phone and he's 10 and it's
Mm-hmm.
2003, like
Mm-hmm.
it just seems unlikely. So the next episode's crazy.
I just can't stress enough how iconic and memorable the blue and the boombox moment is.
Yes.
But we're gonna go from like our highest high to our lowest low
Yeah.
with the next episode.
Yep.
um so episode 12.
Yep, there goes the bride. Raven gets a vision of Devon showing Chelsea a jewelry box. And so Devon ends up showing Chelsea a jewelry box, and it's a wedding ring for his father. And Devon ends up sharing with Chelsea that he has the secret he's hiding from Raven, and he doesn't know how to tell her. And he's a best man in his father's wedding, and his father's getting married that day. And he has to
Tomorrow.
move. Oh, is it the next day? I think it's the same day.
I don't know. It is a very short time period.
Yeah, whatever. His father is getting married very soon. And right after the wedding, they're moving to Seattle. And he doesn't know how to tell Raven any of this. But he throws all this on Chelsea. So now Chelsea has this huge secret.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she ends up telling Raven. So now
She fights it for a little bit.
yeah, she does, but she doesn't last very long. And she ends up
No.
telling Raven. And so they're like, we gotta crash this wedding. We have to convince Devon's dad to not move to Seattle. He can't move. They end up crashing the wedding. His dad doesn't give them the time of day because he's about to walk down the aisle. And somehow they end up in the bride's getting ready room. And they overhear the bride in the restroom, and she makes a comment about how she's having stomach distress over food that she ate. And so that's what was delaying her from getting in her dress. So Raven decides that it would be a good fucking idea to put on the bride's dress and pretend, no, not pretend because she actually does it, and to walk down the aisle as the bride.
Yeah.
And then she ends up flipping over the veil, revealing her face, and she's like, no, I'm not your bride. It's Raven. You guys can't move to Seattle. And she causes this huge scene. The bride's pissed. They don't know where she is. The bride can't believe that Raven stole her dress. It's a whole fiasco. It ends in Devon and Raven saying I love you to each other, which is very cute. First love, high school feels. I loved it. And then they say goodbye to one another as well.
Yes, because she's saying, don't move to Seattle. And he's saying, this is the right thing for my dad and for my family. We should still go through with it. So he's being very mature. He's also very understanding of Raven being way out of line. So absurdly far out of line.
Yes.
I did not take a single note watching this episode because I was just in shock the whole time.
Yeah.
I was just watching it what the absolute fuck are you doing, Raven?
Yes. As someone who worked in the wedding industry for many, many, many years, this upset me a lot, especially when Raven interrupts the first time before the dad goes down the aisle. She says the line of, it's kind of crazy for me to come here and do this, and then explains you guys can't move, blah, 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 and then the dad doesn't give her time of day. But I'm like, no, Raven, that's not the fucking crazy part. It's not crazy that you came there and tried to interrupt the dad. It's crazy that you then decided it was a good idea to put on the wedding dress and walk down the aisle pretending to be the bride.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in shock. I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. I do remember the Devon moving to Seattle episode, but I didn't remember how absolutely out of line. It's not just that Raven was getting into shenanigans. She took it too far.
I also, similarly, I remembered that he moved to Seattle and that they had this sweet little love you-ish moment. I knew that they parted on good terms.
Yeah.
The wedding episode thus far, it's the first episode I don't really remember. And
Yeah.
I feel like I blocked it out.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that he moved to Seattle, I feel like I just blocked out all of this like secondhand embarrassment of all this stuff she does.
Yeah, also to me, it's not even secondhand embarrassment as much as it's just like, what the hell got into you to even think that that was a slightly appropriate or okay thing to do?
Mm-hmm. I
You
love
do not put
Raven.
on another woman's wedding dress.
No. I love Raven and I love a lot of her antics, but I feel like this is the first one where it happens, and it does unfortunately happen again later where like she goes so far that I disagree with her, and I
Yes.
start to like I'm really starting to theorize that Raven is the villain.
I
Like
mean,
she's so far in her own head that she's just
yes.
doing the I mean, as the theme song says, she ends up misbehaving, like very
Yeah.
much so, Raven.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also like, at what point do we hold Chelsea and Eddie accountable? Eddie wasn't really in this episode as much. Oh, no, he is. He's playing the organ.
Yeah.
But Chelsea is like there and helps Raven get into the dress. And I'm like, at what point are we like, okay, Chelsea, you are just as involved in this?
They enable, but I think they do it because they know she would do it anyway.
I don't know. Can't get in a wedding dress by yourself.
Fair. Um,
It's just crazy. It's too much. She goes too far.
yeah,
And the whole
she does.
episode is lightened up by the side plot, which is really dumb, in which Corey gets Tanya and Victor a wedding anniversary gift. And it's this like, it's called Clucky the Singing Chicken. And it's like one of those wall plaques with like a chicken head. And every single time you walk by it or it sees you come into a room, it has like motion detectors. It starts clucking. And it drives everyone crazy to the point that like Tanya and Victor are like crawling on the floor to try to avoid this clucking chicken.
But they think Corey loves it so much that they pretend that they like it.
Yes, yes. And eventually Corey is like, this thing is so annoying, it's driving me crazy, and he rips it off the wall. But then he replaces it with a duck that quacks instead. And I'm like, I don't know how that's any better.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. It's pointless, but it's cute, I guess.
Yeah. It takes you away from like the
The outrage.
absolute, yeah, yes. I was going to say the absolute fuckery that's happening in Raven's plotline.
Oh my god. And it's so the way that I said that there's like a bunch of Devon episodes, it's surprising to me that in a 22 episode season, his in which he's introduced in the first episode, his final episode is episode 12. So he's in
Mm-hmm.
almost not all, but almost all of the episodes of the first half of the season, and then disappears for the second half.
Mm.
Like it's kind of weird that they didn't choose to spread him out more,
Yeah,
you know, and like develop that relationship over time, even with little things. I don't know
yeah.
why it was so like,
Compressed.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that makes it feel more like genuine or less, more
Yeah.
passionate. But that's a word I don't like using because they're in high school.
Yeah, yeah. Makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It is a very cute relationship. But yeah, I wonder if they kept it going because there's 22 episodes in season 2. So truly, I think he's in 9 episodes, 8 or 9 episodes. And
Yeah.
so if they just spread it out every third episode, you got a Devon episode. I wonder then if this final episode of him leaving would have more of an impact.
Yeah. I feel like this could have been a good season finale.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. It's a lot. It still would make me incredibly angry, but I
Oh, yeah.
do think it would be a good season finale.
No redeeming the episode for sure.
No. Episode 14?
A Goat's Tale. This one I did remember.
Me too. I think this one was on the rerun list.
Mm. Did you want to do this one or do you want me?
You can do it.
Okay. There's a big game against Jefferson High coming up, which is their big rival school. And every year, Jefferson High steals Bayside's mascot. And so this year, Eddie steals Jefferson's mascot, but their mascot is a goat, a live goat.
Yes.
And so he steals it for like boosting school morale. And Chelsea's really upset about this. She's upset about the fact that their mascot is a goat because she's an animal rights activist and a vegetarian, and she really empathizes with the animals.
Mm-hmm.
At the very before he steals the goat, there's a radio contest. This is the radio contest part, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So at the very beginning, there's a radio contest to win tickets to Boys in Motion. You have to be whatever caller, and because Raven's psychic, she just calls right on time. Somehow knows when to call to get the wristbands. So she gets the wristbands. So they break this goat out of the school. They end up with it at Raven's house.
Mm-hmm.
The goat ends up eating the wristbands.
Yes.
So now we've got Team Raven. We wait for the wristbands to come out. Team Eddie, we take this goat back to school because everyone thinks that I lost or didn't actually steal the Jefferson mascot. Now they're mad at me because Chelsea broke it out of school.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Chelsea broke it out. Team Chelsea, let's go get this goat to an actual home where it will be respected.
Yes.
So the three of them stay up all night in Raven's backyard, which is massive for a San Francisco backyard. That's my only note.
Yep.
And they're all like falling asleep and trying not to because Raven doesn't want anyone to run off with the goat and blah 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 blah. But then they do end up seeing it Chelsea's way.
Yeah,
And
the goat gets into the house and like destroys everything and eats everything and gets sick. And so Chelsea kind of like jumps into action and is like, I need like a warm compress and I need this and I need that. And like she asks for all these things and she really jumps into like animal caretaker mode. And at that point is when they kind of start to see it from Chelsea's point of view.
Mm-hmm. And Raven's mom calls. Tanya thought she was gonna go with Raven to the concert, and Raven was like, Mom, I already told Chelsea she could go. And then Tanya, even though Raven's been waiting up all night for these passes, she calls and they just replace the passes, so she has new ones. And Raven was going to go to the concert, but at the last minute decides like, no, I should be here with Chelsea and with this goat and do the right thing. And so Tanya gets to go, I think, with Victor.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's our first Boys in Motion mention, I believe. We are the boys in motion. Yeah. We give you our devotion, boys. Yeah. It's not our last. And they end up giving the goat away, right? They don't return it to Jefferson. They like give it to a farm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they give it to a farm, and then Eddie gets in trouble, and he has to come up with a new mascot for Jefferson since he stole the goat.
Yeah. Yeah, my only note is, like, memorable, and this backyard is huge for the main plot.
My other note about the main plot is so at one point, I don't know if it's, Eddie is upset because the goat chews a hole in his back pocket. And it's just a running thing that the goat eats everything. And goats eat everything. And I'm not a huge fan of goats because one time in middle school, one of my best friends had goats. And I went to her house and the goat ate my swimsuit. And I was really, really upset about it. And so ever since then, I don't love goats because goats eat everything.
Was that Nikki?
Yeah. It was Nikki. She had many goats.
I've never met a goat, but I like them because
like, even in a petting
zoo. My cat did not like that sound.
But even in a petting zoo, you've never pet a goat?
I probably did, but I haven't been to a petting zoo in like memory that I can recall. So memory.
Yeah. Do you want to say the side plot? Because I don't really have anything about the side plot.
I don't have notes about it. I know what it is though. Corey's obsessed with playing a video game, and he's been playing with like William or Victor, and they're
Victor, I
not
think.
Victor, and he keeps winning, and so he's like, I need some real competition. And so he plays online against a girl in Hong Kong named Jing Yi, and it's just them playing against each other, and you get this like cute little back-to-back comparison of like him in San Francisco and her in Hong Kong, and her mom coming in sometimes to check on her and his parents coming in to check on him, and she ends up winning, yay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much all it is. It's just like kind of a cute little thing, a little nod to the fact that at this time when the internet was up and coming, people were starting to play games online against each other and with each
Yeah.
other. You know, this was really like when World of Warcraft was on its rise and peak and all
Yeah.
that.
I feel like it was like the start of the takeover of internet gaming.
Yeah. So that's all. But I like the side by side because it's very like kids are kids regardless of where they live.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's cool that they show that it's like the internet can work in cool ways in which people who would seemingly not have any other connection besides that they like, competition when gaming can then connect so many thousand miles away, over
Mm-hmm.
playing video games. So it is really cool.
I also like that the girl wins.
Yeah, and she's a little badass, and she's like super proud of herself too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next one, episode
Yeah.
15. He's got the power. This is a good one.
This is a bonkers one, but go ahead.
Oh, I love it. There's a okay, I guess it is bonkers now that I'm about to say this sentence. There's a comet in San Francisco while they're preparing for 70s night at the Chill Grill. So they all come out to view this comet because it's like, once in every hundreds of years or whatever, this comet comes. And since they're preparing for 70s night, Eddie is holding a disco ball, and they walk out, and the comet comes over San Francisco, and like somehow like its rays bounce off the disco
It reflects
ball.
off the disco ball.
Yeah, and then into Eddie's eyes, and it gives Eddie psychic powers. And so Raven is like, well, you can't tell anyone. Like, I can't tell anyone mine because like it doesn't go over well. So like you can't tell anyone. You have to keep this secret. And Eddie is like, I don't understand why I wouldn't tell people. Like, I'm going to use this to my advantage. Like, why wouldn't people love that I'm psychic and can tell the future? And so he uses his powers to make him popular and to have an in with like the popular girl in this episode, which is not Alana. It's a girl named Katima. And so Eddie has a vision that he kisses Katina, while Raven has a vision that Katina like disses him and like gives him the like talk to the hand symbol. And then Eddie's kind of like, you're just saying all of this because you're jealous that I'm now popular and everyone loves me because I'm psychic, and you're just over there keeping everything a secret. And then we see Eddie throughout the end of the episode starting to lose his powers. Now, we're going to pause and go to the side plot that kind of, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. So, anyways, Raven and Chelsea come into the Chill Grill dressed up for 70s night, and they're this power pair called Coffee and Cream. And Eddie is in there being beat up. He's about to be beat up by Sunny, who Eddie had told him his vision, which helped Sunny win a horse betting race. And Eddie had lost his vision and had realized that Sunny was using his powers to gamble. And so Eddie just lied and was like, yeah, and bet on this horse. And he lost all his money. And so he went to the Chill Grill to beat up Eddie. And Chelsea and Raven kind of bust in as Coffee and Cream. And they like pretend to be cops. And they're like, freeze, sucker. And the same thing happens. Tanya and Eddie show up and they do the same thing. And Tanya goes into like super mom mode where she's
Tanya
like,
and Victor.
oh, yep, Tanya and Victor show up, not Tanya and Eddie. And Tanya does the same thing where she like goes into her super mom mode and she's like, I'm going to call your mother, Sonny, and I'm going to tell her that you've been gambling and blah, blah, blah. And so then he runs away all scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eddie ends up apologizing to Raven and Chelsea and tells them that he's losing his visions. And then it ends with this like 70s dance musical singing number by the three of them. And they're doing like, he's a disco dude, that song, in a crazy funky mood. And they're doing that, uh-huh, oh yeah, uh-huh, oh yeah, that part.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's that episode.
I have a lot of notes. So in season 1, there was this is not one of my notes, but I do remember in season 1 there was an episode where the finale, Raven stopped sharing her visions with Eddie and Chelsea, and so we stopped getting to see her visions, and you didn't like that. In this one, you don't get to see Eddie's visions. He just like has them.
No, you do.
What?
Some of the okay, I agree with you. You're right to an extent, but some of the visions you do see him have, and but you don't see him. You don't see him have all of his visions.
Okay. Also, I don't know if you pointed this out, but Eddie can have a vision whenever he wants, which Raven cannot do.
I did not point that out, but yes, that is a very important part of this episode.
For the time that he has powers, if he just makes the vision face, he can have a vision, which Raven's jealous of. Also, at the very beginning when he first has a vision, she's like, you cannot tell anyone you're psychic, like they're going to treat you differently, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but why? And so he tells everyone and gets super popular. And there's this great line, I don't know why exactly, but they're talking about like I think someone's like he should have his own show, and Raven goes, who would watch a show about a teen psychic, and looks straight to camera, like breaks the fourth wall.
Yes, I wrote that as a note as well.
Is fun.
And this is the second time we get them breaking the fourth wall in the series.
Because of the holiday episode?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's much more subtle in a way.
It's a little cheeky.
Yeah, it's almost like, wait, does she know that she's in a show?
Yeah. It's fun.
But I have so many questions. Like, first of all, with the magical realism crap and the fact that technically speaking, yes, they're living in our world, but like if you want to look at it as like the MCU, we're in the multiverse, they're in another reality which looks very much like ours, except also there are psychics, and for some reason they are adding to the canon of that world that you can get psychic abilities from a comet reflecting off of a disco ball. And like, why?
Yeah.
And how many people has this happened to in history? Because I realize it's an odd combination, but surely it's happened before. And does it have to be a disco ball, or could it just be a mirror?
Yeah, like anything reflective. Also, like, why does his powers fade? Is it like the comet is like moving further and further away from San Francisco, so that's why he no longer has powers?
Oh, I just thought it was like because he gets them temporarily because it's not true genetic powers.
Oh, okay.
Like
also, the comet shocking it into his system only lasts for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, like our COVID antibodies.
Okay, it's fair.
What high schoolers are betting on racehorses? Like, is this a 45-year-old man?
I was also gonna say, I feel like Disney does this where they just need to like throw in that certain things are bad, right? How we've had in both Lizzie and Raven, we got the credit cards are bad and this is why. And this is just Disney telling us gambling is bad. They just needed to make sure we knew. And so they were throwing it at us and letting us know, don't gamble. It's bad.
Fully agreed. Could we not have gambled on anything other than racehorses because he's not a middle-aged man?
Yeah, I mean, sure, but like they're not going to show him at a casino, like playing the tables.
I feel like even dogs would. Wow. Then there could
That's
be
more
some.
controversial, I think.
Yeah. A football game?
Okay, sure. Sports
A
would make more
basketball
sense.
game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Him betting on the horses was just ridiculous. There's also a moment. So Eddie knows that he's gambling on him. He asks him about the horses. Eddie tells him. Then he realizes he's gambling on him. And then Sonny comes back after his visions are gone. But in this moment, like, Eddie's quite nervous and he's at the chill grill and Victor is leaving for something and he's like, oh good, since you're here I don't have to lock up. You absolutely cannot leave a kid alone in a restaurant without locking up Victor Baxter. Like, what
Yeah.
the hell are you thinking? And that's when Sonny gets him.
But also, like, clearly this is before their 70s night extravaganza. And I'm like, Victor, your restaurant's just closed. Like, this is clearly the middle of the day. I just don't understand how Victor's restaurant is surviving.
Some restaurants close for like a few hours between lunch and dinner.
Yes. Typically, that's like more traditional in like certain European countries and in like Asian cuisine where they'll like serve for lunch, close for 3 or 4 hours, and then open back up.
Yeah. I'm just
It's possible.
When I worked for the major coffee company in Canada, we legally were not allowed to be at the store alone. You needed 2 people to open and 2 people to close
Oh,
because if in case of a robbery or something like that,
yeah.
you never want one person to be alone in
That's
the store.
smart.
And so to have one person and it's a teenage boy
Yeah.
and you're going to say I don't have to lock up,
Yeah, it's not good.
like, that pissed me off. But the costumes are very memorable. The disco night costumes, and they're from a show that the family's been watching obsessively. And there's a lot of moments in Raven. We get more of them in season 3 as well, where they kind of pay homage to certain moments in Black culture, and I feel like this is one of them with the disco theme.
Yep. I also think important to note, quick side plot because it wraps in. So the show is undercover disco divas, and Corey becomes obsessed with the show, and he starts like using some of the lines from the show at school to like the teachers and the lunch lady. Like he tells the lunch lady without her hairnet, she's one foxy mama. Um, and Tanya gets a call from the school about this, and she has to teach Corey the lesson of like, just because you hear something on TV doesn't mean you need to now say those things in real life.
Yeah.
Like, they exist in this universe that is this TV show, and that's where they need to stay.
Yeah. Also, we somehow have neglected to mention this whole time that Katima is played by Haley Duff.
Yes, I have that too.
And I don't know why they chose Katima for Haley
Katina,
Duff.
I think.
I thought it was Patina, like Patina. When I watched it, that's what I wrote down. But when I checked Wikipedia, it was Katima, Catima.
Oh, with an M. I wrote Katina, but with an N.
Yeah, according to the credits,
Interesting.
it's Katima with an M. But I don't know why, because it's freaking Haley Duff. Like,
Yeah.
she's white as, well, me and the snow outside.
Yep. Correct. She is. But we got another Haley Duff. They had to throw her in there. She's probably doing some cameos on Lizzie, and they're like, you're already here. Let's throw you in on Raven.
Probably. A little momager moment.
Yep. Episode 17, The Dating Shame.
Okay. Do you want me to do this one or do you want to do it?
You can do it.
Okay. So Raven and Chelsea go on a new TV show. It's a reality show where girls I say very lightly, compete for a date with this like hunky boy. And it's called Termadate. Like terminate and date, I guess.
Yes.
And the guy that they're competing to go out with is named Chad, and he's cute, and that's it. He has no personality. Raven has so Raven and Chelsea are both competing on the show along with two other girls. Raven has a vision that she's going to say something bad about Chelsea in the footage where she calls her a loser. And she tells Eddie this. She doesn't want to tell Chelsea. She doesn't want to freak her out. She tells Eddie. And Eddie's like, maybe just don't. Like, just don't call her a loser.
Yeah.
Eddie at the same time is like trying to break into the business. So he talks to the producer, and the producer's like, cool, you can be my assistant, go get me donuts. And that we just see him running around the set. That's just keeps him around while Raven is having her moment of crisis. And then even though both of the girls said nice things about each other in their interviews, the footage has been edited in such a way that when it's aired, it shows Raven calling Chelsea a loser, like in her vision, and it shows Chelsea saying something bad about Raven as well.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it was, but I know that
remember.
It was bad. And so they start to argue while on the show. The first round was at the Chill Grill. There was this whole dance thing where the other two girls got like knocked out essentially by Raven and Chelsea, and so Chad chooses Chelsea and Raven to continue on the show, and they have to go head to head, and they're arguing, and they end up having to hang from a bar over a tar pit.
Wait. First, they have to eat dinosaur eggs.
They have an egg eating competition, yes.
But it's a dinosaur egg.
Yeah.
And then they both eat the egg in the same amount of quickness. I don't know. They
same
both
speed.
Eat the same speed. And so then it's a tiebreaker. So now they're hanging from the bar.
They're hanging from a bar to see who can last the longest, and if they fall into a tar pit. Mm-hmm. And Eddie finds the original tapes while they're doing this of them saying nice stuff and plays it for them, thus exposing the director's scheme, and they make up and they both bow out of the show, and they shove the director into the pit as well. And do we want to talk about the B plot? Do we want to talk about the A plot and then get to the B plot?
I guess let's talk about the A plot and then we'll get to the B plot.
Yeah, okay. I detest the idea of this show.
Well, first off, you keep referring to him as the director, Rodney Rivers, but he's the host.
I think he's also the director. I think it's like the Even Stevens movie show.
Okay. Also, he's like San Francisco's popular radio station's morning radio station DJ. So my thing is like, one, he would never be the one hosting a dating show. That like really threw me off. I'm like, this is not the person who would be hosting a dating show. Two, the idea of a teen dating show just seems like very illegal.
Well, my problem is not that they're teens. My problem is that these girls are going head to head and the prize is that they go on a date with a slightly above average looking guy. That's we're setting the feminist cause back 20 years, Jessica.
But is that all dating shows?
No, because on dating shows, they go to like find love, and then at the end they win money.
No. You don't win any money on The Bachelor.
Okay, well, you do on Love Island and on a bunch of other shows, I'm sure. I don't know. I've been watching Too Hot to Handle lately, which is
Yeah.
not a good example, but on some you win money, and at the very least you win fame, and you I've never seen The Bachelor, and I don't like the concept of it there either, but at least then they're consenting adults.
Yes, very true. But they don't win money, and it costs a lot to go on the show. They do not provide them with wardrobe or hair or makeup. So it's literally like crazy expensive to go on the show. And like in the early days of The Bachelor, like you weren't even guaranteed to be famous after. Like even people who were in the top 3 maybe had minimal fame. It's not like today where like, okay, you can then have some sort of social media career following going on the show as long as you're in the top like 8. You can have a social media career, so that's kind of like incentive to go on the show. So and The Bachelor I'm just more familiar with because I've watched many seasons of it. But I'm sure there's other dating shows out there where the prize is just winning the person.
I hate that.
I agree. I think it's stupid.
I think it's stupid and archaic, and at least for The Bachelor, everyone on it is a consenting adult, and the targeted audience are adults who can read through the nuances of it, whereas these are teenage girls
Yeah.
fighting each other for a
Yeah.
boy
I was just
for
going to
a
say I
teen
think
show.
Yeah, I think the bigger issue with this show too is it's not like they're who has the better connection. They're not like
Exactly.
going out on dates or asking questions in which you would be like, well, we have no similar interests or things like that. It's literally like we're going to pit Raven and Chelsea against each other and make you compete in these like archaic weird ways in front of this
Exactly.
guy and have him watch you. But
Yes.
like that's not even who like regardless, in this case neither of them win, but if someone won, who's to say that that's the person with who's the best match for Chad? Like at least if the competitions were to see who was the best for Chad, that would make more sense.
Exactly.
But
There's
it's like let's
nothing.
just fight.
It's just like girls fighting over a cute boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not here to pit women against each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, another term they used, which now that we're talking about it in this context, I don't like it as much, but it kind of made me laugh because I'm like, oh, you can tell that this is like one show that's in high school, and we've mentioned multiple times that this show throws jokes for the adults a little bit more than the previous 2 that we've rewatched.
mhm.
Is when they're voted off, so the first 2 girls that are voted off,
I
they
wrote this
have
down
to
too.
do the walk of
Walk of shame.
shame.
I wrote that down too. I was like, lol.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I will say, I don't like, and we probably should have at some point mentioned by now that we are 2 white women talking about a show starring a black family, and so sometimes our dissection of things isn't as
Yeah.
nuanced as it should be. But Raven hanging over a tar pit made me a little uncomfortable
Oh.
because of the historical implications of that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that they were in some like Jurassic themed set, but could it not have at least been a mud pit?
Yeah.
And that's not something that the audience would necessarily pick up on, but just watching it now as a grown woman, like,
Yeah.
just the association of a black woman being threatened with a tar pit made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that part aside, the egg challenge is truly the most disgusting part of this show. It's like green scrambled eggs that they
It's
shove
really
their faces
gross.
into. It's
Yeah, because
so
they don't get
gross.
utensils to eat it.
No, because it's Jurassic themed for some reason.
It's okay, so the reason it's not Jurassic themed, it's Stone Age theme. And there's like a
Same
giant
thing.
wheel. Yeah. There's a giant wheel and they have to like wheel it and then it picks like what the theme is gonna be. And they
Mhm.
picked Stone Age.
Yeah. Also of note before we get on to the B plot, Roger Lodge is the name of the guy who plays Rodney Rivers, and he was an actual like TV host. That was his primary job.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was kind of a
I
cute
think
thing.
also of note is Chad is played by Byron Fox, who was Danny Kessler in Lizzie McGuire.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Mm-hmm.
good catch.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I saw him and I'm like, I feel like this was like a love interest in Lizzie McGuire. And then I looked it up and it was Danny Kessler, same actor.
The pilot and Never Returned
Yeah.
was supposed to be the Ethan Kraft of Lizzie McGuire.
Yep. And we get him for one episode in Raven as well.
Also, Chelsea doing pull-ups on the bar is everything. She's
Yeah.
literally like, I could stay here forever. And she just starts doing pull-ups and she's so strong. And then they started being like, oh, I've been working out lately. Oh, me too. It's really important. And I'm like, you girls are 15, like, calm down.
Yeah.
What 15-year-old girl is like working out?
I
Unless
feel
you're
like
playing
a lot.
sports.
Yeah.
Now, yes. In 2003, were we?
I mean,
We
I
were
don't
all
know.
just
I
like,
worked out more in high school than I do now.
I just went to PE and then I worked out when I was having moments where I felt fat.
Yeah. I worked out a lot, plus I did sports. But I never went to PE. B plot it is.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, Corey wants to stay home alone, but his parents won't let him because they're going to a wedding. And so they have a babysitter, and the babysitter calls and she's like, I can't make it, I'm sick. And Corey picks up the phone and he lies to Tanya and Victor and is like, Miss Wilson can't make it because she's stuck in traffic, but she'll be here in like 5 minutes. So you guys can just go off and then I'll greet her at the door. Which why they believe Corey, I don't know. And then Corey is like a living life. He like sets up this entire like snack feast and sits down and watches all these like scary movies. And so he's like super scared, and Tanya has forgotten her purse and her keys, and she's trying to get in the house, but like in the shadows and stuff, like Corey thinks it's someone trying to break in.
Mm-hmm.
And so he like freaks out. And Tanya eventually gets into the house because she finds the spare key. And she's like, what the hell's going on? And then basically just like gets Corey in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Before the scary movies and stuff, Corey has a little Ferris Bueller Top Gun moment where he like slides through the house in a shirt.
Oh, and no pants?
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
But like shorts or boxers or something that was appropriate enough.
Yeah. That's fair.
Episode 18.
The road to audition.
We get our musical episode.
I was gonna say, did Lizzie also have a musical episode? Or did we just get that with Even Stevens?
You know, ironically enough, for the girl that went on to make 5 albums, I don't think we got a music episode.
Yeah.
Maybe because it was too like grounded, you know?
Yeah. But this is our like full on music episode like we got with Influenza the musical in Even Stevens.
Raven has a vision that a representative from their favorite show, Undercover Superstar, is posing as a janitor at her school. Kind of. So she has a vision of like a guy being like, so I'm in, or something like that. At the same time that they're saying on Undercover Superstar that we could be sending scouts to any of your schools. And so Patrick Bristow, who plays the janitor, who plays Patrick in The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, got his own name for that. He's like going through the school and everyone's just breaking out into song because she told Eddie and Chelsea and they told everyone.
Well, they didn't tell everyone. She told Eddie and Chelsea, and then just randomly everyone overhears.
Oh, right.
whenever they're talking about it. So then everyone at the school knows.
Yeah, so
Every single person.
everyone's singing for her, like, for him. Like, that's the whole plot, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, Alone in the Hallway is actually, like, a great kind of a jam.
Yep.
That's Chelsea's song. They all have different genres, which is very fun. Chelsea has "Alone in the Hallways" as always.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's great.
Eddie
Eddie
does like a basketball rap number.
Eddie has the basketball number before High School Musical.
Yeah.
Eddie walked so Chad and Troy could run. Okay.
Yes.
And you know what? His number is actually really good. And
It's
there's this
really good.
whole breakdown. I did put this on our stories when I was watching it weeks ago. Because there's this whole breakdown with the basketballs and this choreo moment. It's great.
Yeah.
It's more of a rap
It's a wrap.
moment.
Yeah.
Raven has got Miss Raven-Symone, fresh off the Cheetah Girls, has got her pop star moves down.
Mhm.
She's up on the tables in the cafeteria. She has a full outfit change mid-number.
Yep.
She's, yeah,
It's
very pop
full
star.
like pop star girl group.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end, they go up to the fake janitor and they're like, "Well, what do you think?" And he's like, "Oh my God, this I've never seen such a talented school, and like I would put you all on that show if I could," because they mentioned or something, and they're like, "Well, why don't you?" And he's just there for the help for from the health department,
Yeah, looking for bugs.
which apparently this school has a lot of.
Yep.
And then we get so at the very beginning when they're watching the show, we get a Paula Abdul cameo, and at the end we get her in a janitor costume with a fake mustache going up to Raven being like, "Does anyone at this school want to be a star?" And Raven's like, "I'm not singing for any more janitors."
Nope.
And she takes off her fake mustache and is like, "I guess Bayside's a bust."
Yeah. Well,
Um
she says like, I guess I'm gonna have to go check out Jefferson now.
Yeah. uh Miss Paula Abdul, during the height of American Idol fame, we are 3 seasons into American Idol when this episode comes out. And I mean, she was an icon before that show, but for my generation and the generation watching Raven, that's where we learned who she was.
Yes. And like at that time, everyone watched American Idol. You sat down with your family and you watched American Idol.
I didn't, but
Oh, you didn't. I
my
feel like
family
everyone did though.
my family doesn't like reality TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like it really was one of those shows
It
where you
was a national
now,
movement.
yeah. I was going to say now no one watches TV shows when they come out, right? Like everyone just watches streaming services. But then it was a time where it's like people sat down, you voted, you called in, like it was a thing. So for them to get Paula Abdul, I was like, dang.
Yeah.
I also like this episode, besides for Paula Abdul, clearly was big budget because the amount of musical numbers they do, the amount of backup and extras they have.
And they're all like professional dancers.
Yeah. I'm like, dang. They had a lot of money to spend.
Except Chelsea doesn't get that budget. But you know what? It's fine because Annalisa Vanderpool has her whole Broadway career and she can hold her own.
She does get some backup dancers, though.
Oh, I thought she was alone in the hallway.
Yeah, she is. And then towards the end of the song, people who all kind of roughly look like her, with like masks over their face, are like dancing.
Interesting.
The side plot? Or
There's
do you
a
have any
side
other?
plot?
Yeah, so yeah, there is a side plot. Victor and Tanya, as they're watching the show, Victor and Tanya are like, oh, me and your dad used to have an act back in the day, and we were on this show called
Oh my
Soul
God.
Surge, and our act was called Toast and Jelly. And so Corey is trying to find the old tapes of Toast and Jelly, and Victor is like, absolutely not, you're not going to find them. And so he ends up finding the tapes, and he submits them to the world's most embarrassing parents, which is like a take on America's
Funniest home
funniest
videos.
home videos,
Mm-hmm.
which also was very popular at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he submits this tape, and it's this whole thing of their act as toast and jelly, and then Victor goes to go into the splits, and he ends up like hurting himself, and so that's the whole like haha moment, and Victor's like pissed. Also, I have to say their act was not that good.
No, I blocked all of that out. Thanks for bringing it back.
You're welcome. It's what I'm here for.
I think
Okay.
you're gonna have a lot of fun talking about the next one if you want to
Oh my
summarize
god, I
it.
love this episode. It's so good. I have a lot of questions, but
Oh, me
it's so
too.
good.
Yeah, no, I knew you were gonna, with your upbringing and
Yeah.
industry experience, I knew you were gonna have a lot to say about this one.
Yes. The episode 21, My Big Fat Pizza Party. This one also was hot on the reruns. I
Mhm.
really remember this one. So, Chelsea and Raven are trying to save up money for a ski trip. And so they ask Victor if they can be waitresses at the Chill Grill. And he's like, "You've never been a waitress before. You guys aren't going to know how to do it." And they're like, "Come on, please." And so he's like, "Okay, I'll give you one try. Don't mess it up." So they're on their first day,
And
they mess it up. And Eddie interrupts Raven, and Raven's like, "Hello, like this is my first day. Clearly I'm helping people here." And he's like, "I'm having love problems with Andrea." So then Raven sits down with Eddie and is trying to figure out what's going on with Andrea, because Andrea's dad is their ride to the ski trip. So she wants to make sure that Eddie and Andrea are solid. So she's ignoring all of her tables. Meanwhile, Chelsea is awful at being a waitress because she questions everyone's food choices every single time they eat meat.
and
Because,
gives them the wrong food, I think.
yeah, she just like is not good. And so Victor is pissed because neither of them are doing their job, and he fires them both.
As he should, because they're terrible
They're terrible.
waitresses.
Also, like, he didn't give them any training, but, like, still, they're really, really awful.
They're like actively trying to be bad.
Yeah. Somehow they convince him to give them another chance.
Raven has a vision that she's gonna get a lot of customers to the Chill Grill, so she
Yes.
convinces Victor to give her another chance.
Yes. And so they both show up to work. Victor's running late, and Chelsea's like, "I booked a private party." And Raven's like, "I booked a private party."
And Corey's like, William's birthday party is here tonight.
Yes. And Victor's running late because his car broke down while he was picking up the clown for William's birthday party. And so Chelsea and Raven are trying to like manage the situation because the party that Raven booked is well, I don't remember who booked what, but one of the groups is like old ladies that are part of a knitting club, and the other is like a motorcycle club.
With big guys.
Yeah, with big like beards and, tough
Names
guys.
like Snake.
Yeah. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we feed everyone? How do we keep everyone happy? They go in to talk to the assistant chef, and the assistant chef is like, "There's 3 parties on one night, and all of these 3 parties think they're private parties. Like, fuck this, I'm out." And he quits. And so they're scrambling, and Raven's doing Lord knows what, and walks back into the kitchen, and Chelsea has molded all of the doughs of pizza together onto the floor to make this giant pizza.
Because she thought this would be easier than making a bunch of smaller pizzas for some reason.
Correct. She's like, instead of making a bunch of pizzas, I thought it would be easier to just make one pizza. But then Raven's like, "Yes, but how are we going to cook it? We don't have an oven to cook this." Literally, I'm telling you, like, this pizza is probably like 8 feet in diameter. Like, it's a huge pizza. And so William steps in and he's like, I had a second grade science project on this. Like, I know how to do it. And so they're trying to get the rest of the pizza together so then William can figure out his science-y shit to cook the pizza. And so they are spreading the sauce and the cheese and pepperoni while Raven is on skis to like using her on the
Yeah.
skis to spread out all of the ingredients. What ends up happening is they use the energy from the motorcycle engines to heat up knitting needles, which then cook the pizza. And they bring it out and they're like, all right, we're bringing out a slice. And Corey's like, just a slice? And they're like, trust us, that's all you need. And everyone's like digging in. Everyone's like, this is such a fun restaurant experience. And they're all happy. And Victor walks in with the clown. Side note, William's pissed that there's no clown because Victor's car broke down. So then Eddie pretends to be a clown called Food Face the Clown. And we learn that Corey is terrified of clowns.
And the problem with with Eddie and Andrea was that he was making too many jokes, and he has this great line in their first scene where he says, I promise I'll stop clowning around. And then she comes to the chill grill and sees him as an actual clown and breaks up with him.
Yep. And those are all the plots. This is another one of those episodes where all the plots just meld together.
Really liked Corey was afraid of clowns. I felt like a lot of kids represented at this time were afraid of clowns. I was afraid of clowns. I'm not really, like, I could see a clown in real life. I don't know that I've ever seen a clown in real life. I'm more afraid of, like, the creepy old-fashioned clown dolls because I watched Poltergeist when I was young, and there's one that jumps up from the bed.
Yeah.
Regardless, still enjoyed it. And Eddie, as Food Face the Clown, was terrifying.
Yeah, honestly, Eddie's clown was more terrifying than the actual clown because he had spaghetti hair and a big tomato nose, and it was like, it's really disorienting, and he was kind of like aggressive, and it was too much.
Oh, but it's worth noting that despite all the chaos, everyone does have a good time and gets along, and like, while everyone is very understanding of the fact that their private parties got booked over each other, and like they make it kind of one big party, and Victor shows up and he's like, I didn't realize William had such a diverse group of friends.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a couple comments before we go into hospitality comments. First off, ski trips. What's up with the running ski trip? There's a ski trip in Even Stevens, and that's why they like turned the home into a hotel that one episode, into a bed and breakfast to make money to go on the ski trip. And now again, we have another ski trip. I just like, I don't know, seems weird to me, the reoccurring ski trip plot line. And also, William threatens to sue because there's no clown. But my thing is, earlier in the episode, he mentions that his mom hired the clown. So I'm like, why is it Victor's responsibility to get the clown in the first place? Like, I would understand if, like, you booked the Chill Grill and part of your booking with the Chill Grill was for them to hire the vendors. But William said that his mom booked the clowns. Like, isn't it his mom's responsibility to get the clown there? That whole part was confusing to me.
You could all sue after finding out that they made this pizza on the floor with skis, though.
Yeah.
And all of the health codes that were broken in this episode. Yeah.
Also, like, you don't just get a waitressing job. I guess if your dad is the owner of a restaurant, maybe you do. But, like, everyone I know who's a waitress started out as a hostess. Like, it's not one of those things that you just get. Because, like, waitresses, depending on the job, make fairly good money because they get tips. And hostess get tipped less. And so normally you have to, like, learn the personalities, learn the restaurant, learn the tables as a hostess before you become a waitress. So the fact that he's like, Sure, you're both hired. I'm like, that would piss off every single waiter and waitress that he already had, though no one else was working, so maybe he only has them?
It was pure nepotism. It was.
Yeah.
It was not about
Also,
qualifications. He told them they were unqualified. So
why are they booking parties? Waitresses don't book parties.
it's because, well, the owner's daughter could book a party, but it was just because of
No.
her vision. It was because she saw him saying, I've never seen the Chill Girl so packed before, that they were like, we have to get parties in.
Regardless, they are not in the position to book a party. That is not how that works. Most restaurants that book parties like that, one, have an event coordinator or
Mm-hmm.
a sales coordinator that books all the private bookings. Or if it's not that, there's normally a supervisor or a manager that's in charge of private bookings. There's one person that's in charge of large parties and private bookings because too many hands in the pot. Shit happens where you end up with 3 fucking private parties at the same time.
And then you have old ladies putting scary men in their place.
Yeah, it was just a mess. Why
I
did they think it was a good idea to make a big pizza? Why was it made on the floor?
The giant pizza is an iconic moment for all of us, and it's
Yeah,
almost a little trope in the like, not just Disney Channel, but the world of
yeah,
TV shows. Namely, I'm remembering the episode of Gilmore Girls where they try to make Lorelai the world's largest pizza for her birthday. It's very early on. A giant pizza is an iconic moment. The skis are an iconic moment.
yeah.
But I just could not stop thinking about the sheer amount of dirt that would be on that kitchen floor. Like, I simply cannot.
Yeah, and like they didn't mop it. Surely.
Also, why is the kitchen so ugly? Like, it just looks like a storage closet.
That didn't really throw me off.
For a brand new kitchen, I didn't like it.
Yeah, how many restaurants and like hotel kitchens have you been in the back of the house of?
No, none. But
Yeah, I've never been in a kitchen. That's a lie. But most of the kitchens I've been in that are like back of house areas, you're just like, it's a kitchen. Like it's not
well,
anything special.
also, aren't they usually supposed to be like very compactly, like they use all their space, whereas they just happen to have all this floor space to make this giant pizza?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Also, the pizza itself, while she's making it, looks real because they're like throwing stuff on it, but the giant slice that they come out with is just plastic and graphics on top. Like, it's so fake.
Yep. Like it's clearly someone on the prop team made this giant pizza and now they're trying to make it look like a hot fresh slice of pizza and it did not work.
No. And once again, William saves the day.
Also like that, even though I'm like this is crazy, to me I'm like that seems believable. When
That
he
you
was
could
like,
do that.
yeah.
I don't think you could, but I get that like metal conducts energy,
Yeah.
you know?
I'm not saying you could cook a giant 8 foot in diameter pizza with knitting needles and motorcycle engines, but the fact that like some sort of fuel connected to a knitting needle or a piece of metal could cook something.
Yeah. And I like that everyone comes together to help
Yeah.
Raven and Chelsea, even though they have royally screwed up
Yeah.
and are way overstepping everything.
But I
The fact that like
honestly,
the bikers give their bike and the old ladies give their knitting needles and everyone starts to get along.
yeah,
I like that.
I still just don't understand why they were booking parties.
Because they're overstepping all. Why is she getting in people's wedding dresses?
Yeah, that's true. That's worse.
She's misbehaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never knew what that word was in the theme song until I looked it up the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At what part do they say it?
I try to save the situation, then I end up misbehaving.
Oh.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I don't know. I don't think I knew that that's what she said either.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, that was an absurd episode. Very memorable episode.
Yeah.
Next episode, not as memorable, but quite good. Episode 22, Shake, Rattle, and Ray.
Mm-hmm.
So Raven decides that it's time for this feud with Alana to be over because she might get suspended from school.
Yeah, if they don't make up, they're both gonna get suspended.
Because that's how that works. The school forces you to not hate each other.
Well, because they had a feud during a test.
Yeah. So she invites Alana and her friends, Muffy and Loca, to their first sleepover. We learn throughout it that this is actually Alana's first sleepover. And at first, Alana and Muffy and Loca are like kind of having their usual tough exterior. But then over time, we see the girls like getting like to know each other and bonding. Chelsea's there, of course, as well, and it's kind of cute. They're having fun. And Alana's like, maybe I would have went to more if I knew they were this fun. However, Raven has a vision that there's going to be an earthquake. And so she's now very concerned because she can't tell the other girls that she had a vision, but she wants to make sure that everyone's safe. It's a very San Franciscan type of dilemma, you know, if you were also a teenage psychic. And so she tells Chelsea in the kitchen that this is going on and get the girls safe, but don't tell them what's going on. Keep them distracted. And so Chelsea's like coming up with these ridiculous, like, let's hide under this kind of game. And
she's like, let's go all hide under the piano with helmets on.
Yes, and she makes them all wear helmets, and they're like, are you sure this is what people do at slumber parties? And then but then they're getting hungry and angry, and so they tell Raven, and so she's going to make food, and she's got on a helmet with like antlers, I think. And Chelsea comes into the kitchen in a moment that like knocks the helmet so that it's covering her vision, right? And so she's like cooking food that's like disgusting, and she makes s'mores that are actually not at all s'mores. And has Chelsea bring out the food, or she brings the food out, and then the girls get more upset about it. Meanwhile, Eddie and Victor are having driving lessons, which is not going as Eddie would have liked because Victor's being a little controlling.
Yep. Eddie's not driving.
Yeah. Eddie has a toy steering wheel. And I think Corey's in the back of the car too for no reason. So Victor's actually driving, and he's like telling people, oh, it's a student driver, but like he's not driving. Like Eddie's not. And I think Raven calls Victor and tells him about the earthquake that's coming.
Yes, except Corey picks up because
Victor's driving.
Yes,
and he says that Eddie can't because he's driving.
Yes.
And so she tells Corey about the earthquake, and so they rush home. And the earthquake ends up being that Victor crashes the car into the house.
Yeah. Yes. That is what happens.
And doesn't Raven kind of she tells them, at one point, because the girls are like getting really fed up, they're like going to leave, they're like, you're being really weird, and she's like, you can't leave, there's gonna be an earthquake. And Alana's like, how do you know that? People don't just know when there's gonna be earthquakes.
Yeah.
And then he crashes into the car, we think crashes into the house, we think it's an earthquake.
Raven
the whole house shakes.
like, Raven has this very like intimate moment where she shares that she's psychic.
Okay, I couldn't remember if she said it or not.
Yeah, she tells them that she's psychic, but then Victor ends up crashing in, and so then they kind of played off as a prank because Alana's like, oh my god, you got your dad to do that just so he'd believe you were psychic. Oh, is this a prank? Blah blah blah. So then, like, in the end, Alana and Muffy and Loca don't think Raven is psychic. They think this was all some big prank
Yes.
that they pulled off on them.
Which they think is cool. That, like,
Yeah.
she went to all that trouble for it to be a fun slumber party and prank them.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah. So, that's the episode. I love Alana Raven moments. I love their frenemy type thing going on, you know?
Yeah, I also think, like, this is one of those moments where Disney wants to humanize the villain
Mm-hmm.
a little bit because,
Mm-hmm.
you have that moment where Alana is like, I've never been to a slumber party. And
Mm-hmm.
Raven's like, well, maybe it's because you're too cool. And Alana's like, no, it's because no one's invited me.
Mm-hmm.
You
She's
know,
like,
and
you might find this surprising, but some people find me intimidating, Baxter. And then she, like, hits her really hard on the arm or something.
yeah, yeah. So you kind of have that moment where, Raven and Alana do have a little bit of a heart to heart.
Mm-hmm. I actually really liked it because it was a scene where Raven's doing um Alana's nails, and I swear there's like the same exact scene in the Cheetah Girls, but maybe the reverse, that like Adrian's doing Raven's nails,
Mm.
but they're actually best friends in the Cheetah Girls. So I enjoyed that.
Mm.
I found it really weird that Alana and Muffy and Loka just haven't had a slumber party together, though.
So I don't think it's Muffy and Loka's first. I think it's just Alana's first slumber party.
But why haven't the three of them had a slumber party?
Because they're just bullies at school messing with everyone.
But they like live and breathe for Alana.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You'll see it more in a season 3 episode.
Yeah. Also, the s'mores scene where like Raven's making these s'mores, but then as Amanda said, the like helmet gets caught like over her face, so then she has to make them blindfolded. So she makes like some nasty thing with like mustard and like horseradish or tartar sauce on graham crackers or something like that. But what she actually was gonna make is not a s'more, and it made me very angry. I'm like, this is just as atrocious. She was gonna do a graham cracker with marshmallow fluff and chocolate syrup. And I was like, that's not a s'more.
No.
In no world is that a s'more.
No.
Chocolate syrup?
Also, I don't use marshmallow fluff. Which
I know some
is
people.
more forgivable, though.
That to me is more forgivable. I also don't use marshmallow fluff, but the chocolate syrup is what threw me. Like, I was like, no.
I completely missed the chocolate syrup because I was already thrown by the fluff. When she went into the fridge, I was like, what the hell do you need in the fridge for a s'more? But
that
maybe
was me too, because she's like, marshmallows, fridge. And I was like, why the fuck are you getting your, like, you keep your marshmallows in the fridge? That seems like they would dry out. And then when she was looking for marshmallow fluff, I was like,
Yeah, but maybe they had her make such a ridiculous recipe because it would put her in the fridge to get the gross stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's much easier to identify just regular marshmallows in a bag and chocolate bars.
Yeah, but that's the part to me that made it very unrealistic. Just make her cook something else.
True. We don't eat s'mores at slumber parties anyway.
No.
Um,
Also, I just feel like how concerned they are about an earthquake is not realistic for San Franciscans. Because it's like, I feel like living in California, you're just like, oh, an earthquake.
Yeah. I've never been super concerned, but I do understand, like, 1989 was the last really big one in San Francisco, and it literally took out bridges, and the people who are writing and creating these episodes remember that quite clearly.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people acting in it, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Also, like, the level of earthquake that she saw in her vision with, like, things, like, crashing to the floor, like, that's actually a pretty strong earthquake. So I was like, okay, maybe that's understandable. But at first I was like, this is just like normal, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Speaking of normal, for the time, we get some cute little appropriation in the beginning, because
Mm,
Alana's wearing this, like, Asian style, like, Chinese or Vietnamese style dress and has
mhm.
chopsticks in her hair, which is, like, I remember it being trendy in early
Yeah.
2000s, and it shouldn't have been, so I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah.
But also in talking about Alana, her office is the bathroom, which I really liked.
It's literally labeled Alana's office,
Yeah,
and it's the bathroom. And she takes appointments
yeah,
if you want to see her.
yeah. Knowing when an earthquake would be very handy.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the fact that it wasn't actually an earthquake, and if she hadn't told her dad that there was an earthquake, he wouldn't have crashed into the house, and there wouldn't have been a earthquake. So I guess in that case, it's not as handy. But just the idea of knowing when an earthquake would be seems very handy.
Yeah. Also, I feel like they're just like, oh, he crashed into the wall in the garage. And it, like, wasn't as big of a deal as it should have been. Because it's like, that probably was thousands of dollars in damage.
And why did he crash into it? Just because he was rushing home?
Yeah, which they already were delayed because he got pulled over by a cop from
Yeah.
speeding.
Yeah.
So you think he would have learned.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I feel like we just ended on a low note, but it was a good episode.
It's a good episode.
It's very good for the relationship aspects of the series.
It doesn't feel like a season ender, though, now that I'm thinking about it.
No. Should have been the stupid wedding episode.
That episode, or even the pizza party episode, would have made sense as a season ender.
Just because it's so big.
Because it's so big, and the chill girl is involved, and all the characters have one cohesive plot. It just, like, that one to me would be more of a season ender.
Well, the season has, in fact, ended, or our synopsis of it. So, do you want to get into best and worst?
Yeah, I did not go through these.
I only thought about what I think is best. I haven't gotten to worst yet.
Okay. Yeah, what ones are your contenders for best?
I mean, okay, season 2 has incredible episodes.
Yeah.
I think it has so many good episodes. Just going through, I really liked the one with the uniforms, Close-Minded. I loved Blue in the Face.
Uh-huh.
But I think for me, I like the one with the stinky. Oh no, that's the uniform one. The stinky cheese.
The stinky cheese is the
So
uniform one.
I think for me the top ones. Ooh, Hearts and Minds is really good too. Close-Minded is a very strong contender, but I do think That's So Not Raven is the best one. The one where she insists on modeling her own clothes. It doesn't have the level of comedic humor that we're so used to, and physical comedy that we're so used to with Raven, like we get with the pizza and like we get with the stinky cheese and the dating one and all that.
Yeah.
But it just has such a good message behind it.
Yeah, where I feel like with Lizzie, we got a lot of those hard-hitting topics that maybe we get a little bit less with Raven, but this episode does it in such a Raven way where there still is funny moments, like with Raven and the model, like battling it out on the runway, and then they end up, working together, and Raven really standing up for, like, what she knows is right.
Mm-hmm. I also think as many as we got in Lizzie, this one felt more real and more grounded than a lot of the ones that we got there.
Yeah.
Like the struggle and the representation of that struggle felt much more authentic.
Definitely. I would have to say in terms of like fun, probably the pizza party to me is the most fun episode. and I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed watching it. Like, I cracked up while watching it with like Raven on the skis, spreading the sauce and stuff. So that one to me is probably the funniest. But I do agree. I think if we're talking like best all around quality, including it being an enjoyable episode, That's So Not Raven is probably the
Mm-hmm.
best.
And Close-Minded for me is my next. I think those three are top tier. Because the stinky cheese, the uniforms, Alana, it's all iconic, you know?
Uh-huh.
And worst? I'm gonna need a minute unless. Oh, no, I don't need a minute. I know exactly
I
what's
think it has
worse.
to be There Goes the Bride.
It has to be There Goes the
Because like
Bride.
I cannot stress enough, guys. You cannot put on another women's wedding dress. There is no situation or scenario where that will ever be okay. You cannot pretend to be a bride walking down an aisle to the groom. It is not okay on anyone in that situation. It's just the whole scenario is so wrong. It's so wrong.
It's also wrong that Devon's about to move and he like literally the next day and he hasn't told Raven. He's not told her anything. Chelsea breaks his confidence. And then the biggest thing of all, Raven fucking interrupts the wedding by impersonating the bride. Bad enough to interrupt a wedding and then to impersonate the bride. It's just it's cute. They say they love each other and he moves and it is a nice little closure to Devon's storyline, kind of. But it made me so mad that I did not take a single note because I just like hate watched it.
It made me so angry because I'm like, wedding dresses are thousands of dollars. On the cheap side, they are $1,000 on the cheap side.
They are
But
tens
like,
of thousands of dollars
on the expensive side. But like an average wedding dress, it's gonna throw you out $3,000 to $6,000. So that's thousands of dollars. To have the just gall to put on something that someone else bought that is thousands of dollars. And then, I don't know. I just can't get over
she's never met this woman or the groom.
Yeah, she's never met the dad.
And you know what the real criminal offense is? Not just putting on the wedding dress, but putting on the veil to walk down the aisle in it.
Yeah. And because she has it covering her. Yeah.
They fully think she is the bride until she gets to the altar and lifts up the veil.
It's so horrible. It makes me angry thinking about the episode.
We clearly have so much more to say about this episode than a lot of them, but it still has to take the cake for worst because, like, I'm not going to rewatch this episode because it makes me so angry.
It's not okay. And it's funny that neither of us, we both remembered that Devon moved and that they had like a closure moment. But clearly we probably thought it was bad when we watched it as well because we blacked out this entire plot from our memory.
I know. So we're going to say best, That's So Not Raven. Worst, There Goes the Bride.
Yep.
Absolutely. But overall, season 2 of Raven,
so good.
Fucking fantastic.
So good.
Oh, God.
Sorry, and then season 3 is a little bit of a long one. So we still haven't decided if we're going to do 2 episodes or maybe 3 because it's like 35.
Honestly, we might do 3. We might do 4. We'll find. We've got specials in there. Country Cousins is a 1-hour special. And it was the most watched thing on Disney Channel until High School Musical. We've got That's So Sweet Life of Zach and Cody coming up. Or That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana, the crossover moment of the millennia. Yeah. And so we've got a lot to unpack in season 3. It's going to be a lot, but we're going to try to title our episodes and put in the descriptions more clearly what it is we're watching, what we're talking about. So if you want to follow along, it makes it easier.
Yes. So we hope that you join us for season 3, regardless of how many episodes it ends up being, but we'll for sure kick off season 3 with the first portion. of the episodes. And if you want to check us out on any of our social media, it's 90s Babies Nostalgia on Instagram and YouTube. Spell out the word 90s. And on TikTok, it's 90s Babies Nostalgia, but use the numerical there. We love your comments. We love all the interactions we've been getting so far. So please, please, please comment and DM us. If there's anything you would like us to do or share or talk about, let us know.
And thank you to Patrick Dunovit for our incredible music and Don Wheeler for our artwork. And if any of you listening are really, because we know that there's a great community on Instagram of nostalgia podcasters and also writers and whatever aficionados. If you ever want to be on the show, because you're interested in if you're interested in Raven, or if you're interested in Phil or Sweet Life or whatever is coming up to talk about, or even a decom, we're happy to have you.
Yes.
Or even just a soundbite.
Yeah, even a soundbite. Anything you're passionate about, let us know. We would love to have more guests.
And we will have a couple coming up for season 3, so that's something that you guys can look forward to.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
90s Babies Nostalgia.
90s Babies Nostalgia.